There is a particular kind of weariness, isn't there, that has nothing to do with the body. It's a fatigue of the soul, a quiet exhaustion that settles in not after a long day of labor, but after an hour of conversation. You've been to the gathering, the dinner party, the casual meeting for coffee. You've smiled, you've nodded, you've played your part, and yet as you walk away, you feel drained, emptied, as if you've spent your energy not on connection, but on upholding a fragile pretense. You feel a deep and profound sense of loneliness, but it's a curious kind of loneliness, one that is most acute when you are surrounded by other people. You ask yourself, what is wrong with me? Why does the very thing that is supposed to nourish us, human connection, so often feel like a performance I am no longer willing to give? Why do I feel like I'm speaking a different language, even when we are all using the same words? But what if I were to propose something to you? What if that feeling of exhaustion, that sense of being a stranger in a familiar land, is not a sign of your brokenness, but the first symptom of your healing? What if that weariness is not a weakness, but the growing strength of a spirit that can no longer tolerate the trivial games that the rest of the world considers to be of utmost importance? You see, you have been led to believe that your inability to cheerfully participate is a social failing, but it is, in fact, the dawning of a deep spiritual clarity. You are not losing your mind, you are finally beginning to see the madness for what it is. And that awakening perception is what is so very, very tiring. It is the exhaustion that comes from being the only sober person in a room full of cheerful drunks. They are all having a marvelous time, and you just see the mess. The world, you see, operates on a series of unspoken agreements, a grand and elaborate game. We have all tacitly agreed to pretend that certain things are terribly important. Job titles, the accumulation of wealth, the opinions of strangers, the meticulous planning of a future that will never arrive as expected. Society is a stage, and from a very young age we are handed a costume and a script. And for a long time we play our parts with enthusiasm. We believe in the drama. We cry the scripted tears and laugh the scripted laughs. The problem, your problem, is that you've begun to see the backstage. You've glanced behind the curtain and seen the ropes and pulleys. You've noticed that the king is just a man in a paper crown, and the fearsome dragon is just a canvas puppet operated by unseen hands. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Your pain, that deep sense of alienation, does not stem from your inability to play the game well. It stems from the soul-crushing effort of pretending you don't know it's a game at all. Every day you are asked to engage in conversations that, to your awakening mind, feel utterly absurd. They are the currency of the realm, the very fabric of the social play. And your growing inability to trade in this currency is what makes you feel so out of place. There are, in essence, three fundamental conversations that form the pillars of this grand illusion. Three conversations that are not just meaningless, but are designed specifically to keep the dream state going, to keep everyone asleep. And your avoidance of them, your visceral rejection of them, is the most hopeful sign you could ever ask for. You are not avoiding connection, you are avoiding the illusion of it. The first conversation you must learn to avoid at all costs is the conversation of justification. Think about it. How much of our social interaction is a subtle, or not so subtle, courtroom drama? You are constantly being placed on the witness stand, and you are constantly placing others there. Why did you leave that perfectly good job? Are you sure you want to move to that city? It's so expensive. Why aren't you married yet? Why do you have so many children? Why don't you have any children? It is an endless interrogation, a perpetual demand that you present a logical, defensible case for your own existence. We spend countless hours polishing our reasons, building our arguments, preparing our defense for a jury of our peers who are themselves preparing their own defense for us. We believe that if we can just explain ourselves perfectly, if our logic is unassailable, then we will be granted the verdict of acceptable. We will be validated. And so we walk around with a heavy briefcase full of evidence for our own lives. We have charts and graphs for why we chose our career, a 500-page thesis on our romantic choices, a list of pros and cons for where we live. The sheer weight of it is staggering. This conversation is not about genuine curiosity, it is about control. It is about forcing the wild, spontaneous, and unpredictable nature of a human life into a neat, tidy box of rational decisions. It is society's way of ensuring that no one strays too far from the path by making the price of deviation a constant, lifelong defense of your choices. Your weariness with this conversation is not a sign of arrogance or antisocial behavior. It is the beginning of true self-acceptance. You have started to realize a profound truth. Your life is not an argument. It does not require a defense. It is a work of art, a dance, a piece of music. Do you ask the river to justify its path to the sea? Do you ask a cloud to explain its shape? Do you demand that a symphony provide a logical argument for its transition from a minor to a major key? No. You simply experience it. You witness its unfolding beauty. To refuse to engage in the conversation of justification is to finally declare, if only to yourself, I am, and that is enough. When someone asks you to justify yourself, and you simply smile and say, it just felt like the right thing to do, you are not being evasive. You are speaking a higher truth. You are acknowledging that the deepest motivations of the human spirit do not come from a spreadsheet of pros and cons, but from an intuitive, ineffable knowing. From a place beyond words. Resisting the pull to justify is an act of profound spiritual rebellion. It is the quiet reclamation of your own sovereignty. You are no longer an employee of the court of public opinion. You are the artist of your own life, and the art needs no explanation. It simply is. The liberation that comes from putting down that heavy briefcase of reasons is immeasurable. You can finally just walk, just be, just live. And you grant others the same grace. You stop putting them on the stand because you realize their life is their music, and you are simply there to listen, not to judge the composition. The second conversation you must avoid is the conversation of speculation. This one is perhaps even more pervasive, more insidious. It is the endless, obsessive chatter about the future. What if I lose my job? What if I get sick? What if this relationship doesn't work out? What will you do in 5 years, in 10, in 20? We have become a culture of phantom chasers, living not in the vibrant, tangible reality of the present moment, but in a million potential imaginary futures. We are ghosts haunting the houses of what might be. This conversation is fueled by anxiety, and it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Insurance, investments, retirement plans, the endless news cycle of potential disasters, all of it is designed to keep us focused on a future that does not exist, and in doing so, to rob us of the only life we actually have, which is this one, right here, right now. The conversation of speculation is an addiction. It provides a false sense of control. If we can just think through every possible negative outcome, we tell ourselves, we can prepare for it, we can prevent it. But this is the grand illusion. It's like trying to build a dam in a river of smoke. You cannot control the future. All you are doing is poisoning the present with the anxieties of an imaginary world. You sit at a beautiful meal with a friend, and instead of tasting the food, instead of feeling the warmth of the connection, your mind is in a speculative future where you can no longer afford such meals. You are walking in a forest, the sun is on your skin, the birds are singing, but you are not there. You are in a mental boardroom running scenarios about your career trajectory. Your growing impatience with this conversation is not a sign of irresponsibility or apathy. It is a sign of profound presence. You are beginning to awaken to the simple, earth-shattering reality of the now. You are discovering that life is not a dress rehearsal for some future event. This is it. The show is happening now. The music is playing now. To refuse to speculate endlessly about the future is to arrive in your own life. When your friends or family begin to spin the web of what if, and you find yourself unable to participate, it is because your soul is planting its feet firmly in the soil of the present. You are no longer interested in discussing the weather patterns of a hypothetical planet. You are interested in the feeling of the sun on your face today. This will be deeply unsettling to those around you. They will call you naive, unprepared, a dreamer. They will say, you have to be realistic. You have to have a plan. But what they call realism is, in fact, the deepest kind of fantasy. The fantasy that we can outwit reality, that we can bind the endlessly creative, chaotic, and surprising universe with the flimsy ropes of our plans. True realism is accepting that the future is unknown, and that the only point of power you have is in how you meet this present moment. The peace that comes from abandoning the conversation of speculation is the peace of the sailor who stops trying to command the winds and instead learns to adjust the sails. You can't control the ocean, but you can learn to dance with the waves. And the dance is always happening now. To disengage from this conversation is to finally come home to yourself, to the only time and place that has ever truly existed. It is to find an unshakable stability not in the certainty of the future, but in the fullness of the present. Finally, the third conversation you must learn to avoid is the most fundamental of all, the conversation of categorization. This is the great game of the intellect, the mind's favorite pastime. It is the incessant need to label, to judge, to sort every experience and every person into a binary box, good or bad, right or wrong, success or failure, us or them, sacred or profane. This is the very foundation of the ego. The ego cannot exist without comparison, without judgment. It needs a hierarchy. It needs to know where it stands. And so, we spend our days as tireless taxonomists of reality. This person is a success. That one is a failure. This political opinion is right. That one is wrong. This experience was good. That one was bad. We think this is how we make sense of the world, but it is actually how we destroy it. We take the flowing, interconnected, infinitely complex river of reality, and we try to chop it up and put it into little, static, labeled jars. And in the process, we lose the river entirely. We are like a botanist who becomes so obsessed with classifying flowers that he never actually experiences their beauty or their fragrance. He has the label, but he has lost the rose. The conversation of categorization is the root of all conflict. It is the us versus them mentality that fuels wars, the right versus wrong certainty that fuels fanaticism, and the success versus failure judgment that fuels an epidemic of anxiety and depression. It is a conversation that creates a world of dead things, of static concepts, because a living, flowing thing can never be perfectly categorized. Your growing discomfort with this conversation is the most profound sign of your awakening. It is not a sign of moral ambiguity or indecisiveness. It is the emergence of wisdom. Wisdom is the ability to see the whole picture, to hold opposites in tension, to understand that the saint and the sinner are two sides of the same human coin. It is the realization that a bad experience can be the seed of our greatest growth, and a successful outcome can be the seed of our complacency and downfall. You are starting to see the world not in black and white, but in an infinite spectrum of color. When you sit with people who are eagerly sorting the world into their neat little piles of good and evil, and you find that you have nothing to contribute, it is because you are beginning to see the connections they cannot. You see the fear behind the anger. You see the shared humanity in the one they call the enemy. You see the intricate dance of light and shadow in every situation. You are no longer a judge in the courtroom of life. You are becoming a witness, an observer of the whole magnificent and terrifying play. This will make you very lonely at times. People who are addicted to the certainty of categories will find your perspective threatening. It destabilizes their world. Your refusal to condemn, your willingness to say, "I don't know," your ability to see the good in the bad person and the bad in the good person, this will be seen as a weakness. But it is the ultimate strength. It is the strength of the ocean, which accepts all rivers without judgment. It is the strength of the sky, which holds all clouds, light and dark, without preference. To withdraw from the conversation of categorization is to step out of the game of the ego and into the dance of the soul. It is to find peace not by having all the answers, but by becoming comfortable with the questions. It is to love the world not by approving of it, but by seeing it for what it is, a single, unified, mysterious, and sacred whole. And so, you see, this weariness you feel is the sign of a great transformation. You are not breaking down. The illusions are. The need to justify your existence is dissolving. The need to control the future is fading. The need to judge and categorize reality is losing its grip. What is left when these three conversations fall away? Silence. But it is not an empty silence. It is a full silence. It is a space of pure observation, of pure being. You become a better listener because you are no longer formulating your defense, your prediction, or your judgment. You are simply present. And in that presence, for the first time, true connection becomes possible. A connection that is not based on shared opinions or mutual justifications, but on the shared mystery of being alive. You will find that your circle of friends may shrink, but the quality of your relationships will deepen immeasurably. You will feel a new kind of solitude, but it will not be the ache of loneliness. It will be the peace of sovereignty. You are an island of stillness in a sea of frantic noise. And while the boats of justification, speculation, and categorization may pass by, they no longer feel compelled to dock at your shore. You are free. So the next time you feel that soul-deep weariness after a social event, don't pathologize it. Don't see it as a flaw. Recognize it for what it is, a signpost. A compass needle pointing you away from the noise and toward the music. It is the voice of your own awakening spirit, gently whispering, "This game is over." There is a deeper reality to be experienced. So what to do? You do nothing. You don't announce your withdrawal. You don't make a grand declaration. You simply, quietly, stop participating. When the invitation arrives, the invitation to justify your life, to anxiously predict the future, or to harshly categorize the world, you can just notice it. You can see it for the move in the game that it is, and you can, with a gentle and knowing smile, politely decline. You don't have to offer an argument. You don't have to offer a prediction. You don't have to offer a judgment. You can just offer your presence. And you will find, to your absolute astonishment, that your presence is more than enough. It is, in fact, the only thing anyone was ever truly looking for.